Hi, Charlotte. Marnie and I are really excited to have you on our show today. We were first introduced to you from Julie Pyatt, aka Srimati, who was on our show last month, actually, at the moment we're recording. And after learning all about your amazing gifts and talents, we just knew we had to have you come on. This is a topic. Astrology is not a topic that we've done a deep dive into with any of our guests, and specifically Vedic astrology, which is what your specialty is. And we are just really excited to share you with our listeners today. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's my honor and my pleasure to be here.
Great. So before we dive into the interview, one question we love to ask all of our guests is, what's your one non-negotiable to start each day?
Praying. Is that too short an answer?
No.
Well, my spiritual practice. Mm-hmm. One can hardly get through this interesting world without invoking a divine resource. That's my approach, having lived for some time now.
Okay,
that's
awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, let's hear your story in a nutshell. We'd love to hear how you became an astrologer pretty early on in your life. You're the first astrologer I've ever met, by the way. And I know you're also a professor at the American College of Vedic Astrology, which I don't think either of us even realized that there was like a college for this. So love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Well, bless your heart, dear. So, well, yes, I've always been in love with the sky. Let's put it that way. My father took us out to watch for Telstars, the original satellite going through the night sky. Then he taught us the constellations, and that was it. I was hooked, and I was able to study astrology intently as a very young person, as a teenager, quite frankly. And then I somehow managed to make it a full-time profession right from the start. Of course, I didn't really know what I was doing when I started it, but practice makes perfect. So now 50 years later, I think I have a basic grip on the meaning of the planets. It's a very complex science. And as we were just talking about a moment ago, this is not anything like what you read in the popular press about astrology and your sun signs. So yes, there is. I actually happen to be the president of the American College of Vedic Astrology, which has been in existence for over 30 years. So yes, this exists, and the term Vedic astrology essentially it defines where the planets are against the actual background of the constellations, as opposed to what you and your listeners probably know as Western astrology, which measures the planets where they are against the symbolic signs of the zodiac. So
interesting.
Let's say it's more scientific. It's a sacred science, and it's more scientific. If you asked an astronomer where any of the planets were, I happen to have examples of your charts here, an astronomer would back up how I'm measuring things.
So it's interesting because like my daughter is taking an astronomy class next year in school. So would people that teach astronomy be familiar with Vedic astrology?
Well, they wouldn't be familiar with the meaning of the planetary placements, but they would at least agree that a certain planet is in that sector of the sky. Yes, they are identical. So for instance, we just had a leap day. Remember on February 29th?
My friend was born on leap day.
Oh dear. But we have a leap day to account for, I'm not going to give you an astronomy lesson, but to account for certain slippages that happen. Mm-hmm. And Vedic astrology does the same thing. That's the short version of why there's a different measurement techniques. So this is much more accurate. I practiced Western astrology for 25 years before I discovered Vedic astrology 25 years ago, and so it's much more accurate. Vedic astrology is. Just to give a plug for the science itself.
Yeah. Okay. So can you give an example for us as to how it differs and what are the, kind of benefits in the like a practical, example, if you will?
Well, sure. A practical example is actually, here's the basis of this. The little star patterns, the constellations actually emit a certain type of energy, a certain type of energy. And so, for instance, if we're saying that, if for instance, I'm defining in your chart, Stephanie, just as an example, your sun is in the constellation of Aries the Ram, not the constellation of the Bull, for instance. These are two very different energies. The constellations emit a certain specific identifiable energy. And so knowing where your planets actually are is much, that's much more helpful. That's much more helpful.
Yes.
So,
okay.
I mean, that's the shortest possible version of that I can offer.
So when you say that, like knowing where your planets actually are is helpful for your own personal map of the sky, right? You said, I think, know thyself and all will be known. How could that serve you? Or how could that serve our listeners or serve any of us?
Well, again, that's what it says over the entrance to the Oracle of Delphi. Know thyself and all will be known. So, for instance, again, here, Marnie, I'll pick up your chart. So, for instance, it just so happens that both of you ladies have your Mercury is in the constellation of Pisces. Your Mercury, so we'd say Mercury in Pisces. And now I would be honest with you, Mercury operates in a very certain way when it's in Pisces. Mercury is the planet of communication, how you perceive reality, how you solve the problems of daily life, how you add a column of numbers. It's the nuts and bolts planet of just getting through, going and seeing and doing in your daily life. Little Mercury, the messenger of the gods. Now, you two have Mercury in Pisces, as I just said. And that says that, you may have found by now that your logic, analysis, and discrimination kind of jumps over certain steps to draw a conclusion. Mercury, this is a really intuitive. Pisces is intuitive, sensitive. You have you draw conclusions, not going in a straight line of analysis and discrimination, but this is very high intuition. Now, you might not necessarily be able to label it as that, but the other factor here is you say, well, how is that useful? Well, simply because when Mercury is in the constellation of Pisces, there can sometimes be a little bit of confusion between what you are saying and what other people are receiving. You would probably benefit from making sure that everybody's on the same page more often than most people. So you're both laughing at that. And I mean, you two have good.
It's very accurate.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah.
Well,
myself
yes.
also.
And it's not a detriment. It's just all of these planets are stylistic. This is your style of communication. So here's another example. It's so just to kind of plunge into something else, if you want me to continue that, the idea is, how is this useful to know? Well, so for instance, the most important thing to know about yourself is your rising sign, the constellation that was rising on the eastern horizon at the exact time and place that you were born. So that's why an exact time of birth is so important. And your rising sign changes every 2 hours during the course of any given day. And so, in Western astrology, you're looking at your sun sign. Now, the sun stays in a sign for a month. And it's not exactly like who cares, but that's a long time to say that there's essentially only 12 types of people in the world. No, not at all. Your rising sign is what defines who you actually are. It's very specific for you. If you were sitting on a bar stool in Mumbai and somebody said, "What's your sign, baby?" I realize that's highly unlikely, but if you did, then Stephanie would say, my rising sign is Capricorn. And Marnie would say, my rising sign is Sagittarius. No, if that person were knowledgeable, they would know, going back to Marnie just for whatever reason. All right, Marnie, you're Capricorn rising. Now, that's not all that you
I
are.
thought
But
Sagittarius.
Incorrect. You see, that is the thing about it.
I'm so confused. Didn't you just say Sagittarius rising sign?
Stephanie is Sagittarius. Marnie is Capricorn.
Okay.
Excuse me.
No worries.
I'll set one of these charts aside so I don't confuse myself. Okay.
And we're both Aries, which, by the way, and I'm just thinking back to the initial conversation when we were talking about like Western astrology or just knowing your sign, your astrological sign, just saying you're Aries. That's a full month. You were born during a full like 30-day window versus this being more specific, the rising sun, because it's based on the time and the day and the physical location of your birth.
That is correct. Yes. And so, it's like you could say, okay, your sun sign is an Aries. This says you live in, whatever state you live in. But then you add your rising sign and your moon sign. The moon sign's the next thing we'll get to. But this says you live in this county and this neighborhood in a certain city. It gives it it's a much more refined definition. Mm-hmm. So just as an example, for instance, back to Marnie's chart. All right, so your sun is in Aries. Well, good. That's a good place for that. But what's even a more specific influence for you is the fact that you're the earthy, practical, pragmatic, ambitious, due diligent, high integrity Capricorn rising. You are highly motivated to not disappoint people. There's a lot to be said about Capricorn rising. You would say, if you were talking to a knowledgeable person, if they said, what's your sign? You'd say Capricorn. And I realize your head is about to explode, but this is, a specific style for you. You are a Saturn-based person. Now, this doesn't exclude your, natural exuberance of being an Aries and all these charming, youthful things that you two are. You just both happen to have birthdays close together. But there's a level of seriousness and ambition that's associated with this that kind of tempers the naivete, for instance, that Aries are noted for. The Capricorn part of you is interested in stop loss and what's the plan and what's the budget and the plan and the timeline. You're ambitious, which is not to say that Aries aren't known for being ambitious, but it's more specific. And then, if I shall I continue on this vein?
Yeah.
This is too detailed.
No, this is great.
So in your chart, again, just so I don't confuse myself. So Marnie, you have this really groovy situation in your birth chart because, all right, so you're Capricorn rising as previously mentioned. And also in Capricorn rising at the same time is Mars. You have Mars in Capricorn in the first house. Now that's a complete sentence. And this says that you're also, again, hang on to anything that might fly off. You're a natural born athlete. And you're really, you have great technical skills. Now, you may dispute that, but typically Mars is oriented toward being very due diligent in getting the job done. As I said, ambitious. Mars is in its happiest place when it's in the constellation of Capricorn, as it is in your chart. It gives a lot of strength and ability and visibility and maybe even physical or athletic ability in your chart. There's a lot of different influences here. This is quite complex. So this, in your particular instance, Marnie, this creates I'm just going to use the term because it's so euphonic. You have a Panchamahaparusha yoga here.
Yes, what?
This is something in another world you'd put this on your resume. Yes, I have a Panchamahaparusha yoga. This means you have one of the 5 great personage planetary combinations in your chart because Mars loves to be in Capricorn. Congratulations. And it loves to be in the first house. So again, you have plenty of energy, direction, organization to just get things done. More than most people. And again, that's not all who you are, but again, there's a lot of there's a lot of details here. So I sometimes use the analogy that Vedic astrology is, well, you ladies are probably too young to remember this, I don't know. But in the olden days, they used to have boxes of crayons and there was 8 colors. You had a choice of 8 colors of crayons. That was it. But Vedic, that would be Western astrology. With all due respect to my Western astrology friends, I hope they don't hear this. But Vedic astrology gives you a crayon box with 64 colors in it. So there's a lot more detail here.
That's a great analogy for people.
Thank you.
It's also interesting. And I feel like, aside from the fact that I'm like some stellar athlete, I think it's pretty accurate in some ways.
Well, there's another feature here, though, since you said in some ways. You know, I'm used to people going, oh, my God, how could you know that? Are you reading my mail? And they're crying or laughing or something already. But no, in your case, since you brought it up, Marnie, now you also have something you also have, there's your search term if you want, you also have Jupiter in Capricorn rising. You have Jupiter in Capricorn. Now, I must be honest with you, Jupiter does not like to be in Capricorn. Now, Jupiter is the planet of your belief system, among dozens of other things. Jupiter represents your moral and ethical world. I mean, this represents anybody's moral and ethical world, their belief system, their operating paradigm, their operating assumptions, what you believe in. Now, Jupiter, the planet of faith and hope and charity, is in a really brass tacks sign of Capricorn. So there's a little bit of something to be worked on here. It's a very positive thing to have Jupiter in the first house. Having Jupiter as the planet of also wealth and evolution and fortune and gain, and all these planets have a lot of different job descriptions. So it's a wonderful thing to have Jupiter in the first house, because this is like having a cashmere blanket over you, or having a Platinum American Express card that you don't have to pay, or something like that. But this says, again, working on you for instance, you might have been brought up in a culture or a household that wasn't actually your innate belief system. I'm not saying that you're a natural born heretic, but you might have had to struggle with the family religion. I mean, if you had one, as an instance, or developing more faith, or in the future. Now you might say, but Aries are really outgoing and acting like they have faith in the future. Yes, but if we were having a private conversation, we could probably delve a little bit deeper here. But you also have the aspect of being a gladiator, Marnie. I mean, that's my terminology. You would not find that in any of the ancient sacred texts. But when Mars and Jupiter are together, those two planets really like to be together. And so this definitely helps out. It says that you're a real entrepreneur and plenty of energy, and to take a calculated risk. Jupiter's the planet of gambling. Capricorn, it's very conservative. So that's a calculated risk. But it's a nice combination. You would go far with this one, lady. But I still claim if you're not an athlete, you're a very physical, strong, energetic person. I don't mean that you've got a contract with the NFL, but anything short of that. I had a client the other day, and she had something similar, and I said the same thing to her, and she said, oh, no, not so much. And then she said, oh, yeah, I'm going to Portugal to run a marathon.
We are doing an ultra race or an ultra event.
I was just going to say, she may not be a competitive athlete, but she's very athletic, and we are signed up to do an endurance event. So,
hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it proves your point. I guess it's proving your comment. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
or validating it.
Well, thank you. I know that the vocabulary about these things is important. But yes, well, I mean, you're a striver and a warrior and a succeeder, if I can make up a word like that. I mean, and we live in such a wonderful world that's actually, you can search for these terms.
Mhm.
Jupiter conjunct Mars. If you did that, you would be pretty happy about what you found out.
What is it called? Jupiter what?
Jupiter conjunct, conjunct.
Yep.
It means in the same place. I mean, that's just the short version. You have another combination here that's completely different as well. You have a Venus Sun conjunction. This says that you love beauty and art and peace and quiet and creativity. Venus, you probably understand the archetypes of Venus as well. So the value of knowing this is, okay, so you have Mars in the first house. Yeah, you really do well when you really do well when you're in a competitive situation, I think. So maybe that would encourage you to be elaborate that aspect of yourself a bit more.
You want me to elaborate that aspect?
No. I mean, for you to elaborate the concept that you have Mars in the first house. You go,
yeah.
Oh yes, I am the warrior princess, and assume that.
Well,
I like being a
Charlotte.
warrior princess.
Yeah,
I like that.
There you go. Well, why not? You can define yourself that way, legitimately.
Yeah. Well, I think this, I've been thinking about, as you've been talking about Marnie, it almost helps to validate or bring up this innate or this intuition or who we really are at our core. Maybe a lot of people right now are really searching and trying to figure out, who am I? And this helps to validate maybe feelings that have been squelched because of our upbringing and what people have told us over the years. And all of a sudden, you're sharing this innate, scientific information about us based on when we were born that no one can change. These are facts, right? Based on our birth date and location and time. And now all of a sudden, you're giving people permission to become who they really are and live that genuine life that they're craving. Because Marnie's like, oh, I'm not an athlete, or I'm not what, and then all of a sudden she's like, but I'd like to be, or I do like these events. Maybe I'll do more of them, or maybe I'll take a risk, like a calculated risk for something, because I know that whatever I do, I'll be successful in. And sometimes it's just that little bit of validation, but based on actual facts, based on when we were born. I mean, you can't take that away from someone, right?
That is correct. Yes, you've captured the value of this in a, as you say, in a nutshell.
Well, and I have a question, just thinking about this, so if there's someone that was born on April 19th, 1973, I think I was born at 2:47 a.m.
Correct.
Are they exactly like me, or no, because I was born in St. Louis Park, Minnesota? But if there was another baby born in St. Louis Park, Minnesota at the exact same time, on the same day, in the same year, are we the same person?
Well, in similar ways, in outer ways, but you have different genetics.
Right.
You have. I mean, okay, just for the obvious. So that is a mitigating factor. And also, geez, Marnie, you really go for the jugular here right at the get-go, don't you? See, that's Jupiter in the first house. That's also you're also a philosopher. The philosopher asks the questions why, and what's the vision. So that's another story. But there's the other thing is, you're bringing in some kind of a karmic load from your previous existences. Now, that may be disputable. You can dispute it or not, but most advanced civilizations have been pretty comfortable with the concept of reincarnation, and that makes a lot of sense. So that's the unknown factor. But then there's, again, the environmental factors of, your, let's call it genetics, which includes family and other things. But in terms of the timing of events and the general theme, yes, pretty much so.
Super interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
I want you to get to Stephanie, but I just have one more question, and I want a full reading with you offline. But what about can you tell me something negative I know we weren't supposed to do that, but I'm just curious. Like, it doesn't have to be like really terrible, but just something like that. I'm just curious.
Or like a trait that isn't favorable. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Just something that maybe I'd be like, oh.
Well, okay. Since you brought it up. All right. So in your birth chart, Marty, so the planets actually they connect with each other in specific ways. So in your birth chart, and again, this is a searchable term, you have Mars square Venus. Mars square Venus. Now, you might know from pop culture that Mars is the planet of aggression, assertion, and war and conflict and ego, etc. And it's sort of impressing itself on your lovely Venus, the planet of relationships and harmony. And so, it could be that in your younger days, maybe you were not adverse to having loud, raised voices or slamming doors. Typically, this means, a little bit of, a little bit of spiciness in your love life. I mean, well, that didn't exactly come out the way I meant.
I know what you mean.
Yes, spiciness in love life, excellent, good deal. But again, there can be some sort of discordance here in your in relationships. And again, in a certain way, you could now, if your partner has the same thing, then you could be great sparring partners. That if your partner has the same relating style, yay. But if not, there can be some stress associated with this. But even that is neither bad nor good. It's more stylistic, as I said. Mm-hmm. So that's not even bad, really. Well, here's another thing. You have Mercury opposite Pluto. Now, this is great for research, but it can also say that you could be quite skeptical, or there could be maybe a snarky element here, or not taking things at face value. And you might say, is that bad or good? And as we age, here's the other thing. You two are just at the peak of your fabulous humanity, and you're young and immortal now. But you figure out how to work, how to manage your own planets. So.
I think that's true. I can be skeptical and snarky when I'm thinking about things and researching things, and that's very true.
But you are a great researcher. I mean, in terms of forensics, I would not want to try to keep a secret from you, because you can just somehow, you don't even need, I don't know, you have another fast track into some level of information that's not necessarily out there in linear form. But you got a pretty nice chart, Marty. You were born the day after a full moon, and it's very advantageous to have a bright moon. We'd say a bright moon. We didn't even get to your moon sign yet, and that's another essential component. But that could be a conversation for another time. Maybe I'll use.
Well, can you share what the moon sign, like what is your moon sign, what that means?
So yes, the moon stays in a constellation for 2.5 days. And the moon represents your the highest needs of the personality. The moon is your emotional mind, not your intellectual mind. But the moon represents how you see the world. And for instance, how you see is what you get. How you see is what you get. So the moon is very important. And again, it moves quite quickly. So to reiterate again, your rising sign changes every 2 hours. The moon changes every 2.5 days. So, and the thing about Vedic astrology is it puts much more emphasis on a person's moon sign than their sun sign. It's a lunar-based astrology, but the moon represents what you need for your own personal security. And it's not like you're needy in a certain way, but it's a very high priority.
Sounds important.
Yes.
It's the most important planet in anybody's chart, their moon sign.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Did you tell me what my moon sign is?
Your moon is in the constellation of Libra. So, and Libra is very interested in, so you're born on the full moon. Your sun is in Aries, and directly across from that is Libra. So Libra is very interested in being a collaborator, a teammate, interested in equity, parity, social justice, beauty, creativity, aesthetics, design. There's something quite artistic about this. So, what is the innate need of your personality? I think to be, you're a great ambassadress, or you are interested in being inclusive, collaborative, and all sorts of social contracts are very important to you. You're a very social person, apparently. Serious but social. Now, you might.
I think those are two good words to describe you, Marnie. Yeah. Pretty accurate.
Although I like to have fun too.
Yeah. Well, social, that means you're having fun, right? I mean,
yeah.
I presume, I guess I read into that, but yeah.
Oh, yes. You're definitely fun loving. That goes from, well, never mind. We could keep, we could talk about these certain formula for hours, but.
Yes. And we will both be reaching out to you separately.
We'll do a one-on-one.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be fun. So did you redirect me towards Stephanie then?
Yeah. And yes, because I could just keep asking you questions and we won't have time for her.
Yes.
So let's get to Stephanie.
See, that's the thing about your Mercury opposite Pluto. You're also the relentless questioner.
Yep.
That is true.
Relentless questioner.
I hear that from a lot of people.
Well, so again, carving back to the larger question, how is this useful to you? You might say, maybe I'm probing too deeply, or just to be aware of that. In your case, Marnie, I'm not saying dumb yourself down or anything. It's just something to be aware of. So,
yep.
And again, it's neither bad nor good. It's, as I say, stylistic. Yep. So then if we look at Stephanie's chart, I wanted to also let you and your listeners know that I purposely did not go, there's information out there about who you are. And I purposely do not look at, I don't Google my clients before I meet with them. I just want you to know that so that I could, talk about this innocently. So Stephanie, if you and I were having a one-on-one session, we would start with your rising sign, and we've verified your birth data, and your rising sign is Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius, just to compare and contrast, the Capricorn, Marnie's Capricorn is really due diligent, serious, brass tacks, what works and doesn't work. That's what Capricorn is about. You're Sagittarius rising. So this says that you are the natural born philosopher. First of all, we'll start with that concept. And I do not mean that that's necessarily your job description, but your natural state is to ask the question why. That's that's philosopher's job. And Sagittarius, so you'd call yourself a Sagittarius if someone knowledgeable asked you about this. So Sagittarius says you're a great teacher, guru, guide, cheerleader, uplifter, coach. You are a truth seeker, truth with a capital T. You're interested in anything that's for cultures other than your own. You're a cosmopolitan person. You can incorporate different beliefs. You're interested in maybe comparative religions or whatever people believed in, or maybe you study Marcus Aurelius, or maybe that's way too specific, but sometimes I say that and people jump out of the chair and say, yes, how did you know that? But in any case, you're a great philosopher and interested in adventure. You are an adventuress. You're an adventuress, if I could use that as a term. Now, in your birth chart, we'd say, so because you're Sagittarius rising, Stephanie, your special planet is Jupiter, because Jupiter is the planet that's associated with the constellation of Sagittarius. Marnie, your special planet is Saturn, just because I didn't offer that. Those are very different energies. Again, Jupiter is the planet of evolution, fortune gain, long distance travel, taking a calculated risk. It has to do with faith, hope, and optimism. Now, in your birth chart, Stephanie, your Jupiter, I'm taking a kind of a different tack here, but your Jupiter falls in the constellation of Aquarius. Jupiter likes to be in Aquarius. This says that you are a natural born humanitarian, social worker. You're interested in the human condition. You could be a great anthropologist, sociologist, human resource person. You're interested in the evolution of human consciousness. Now, I realize that's a broad idea, but now, is that true about you?
It's actually true about me. So it's really interesting that you're saying that about her, because I love all those things you just said.
Well, you two have variations on a similar theme, I hear.
I mean, I would say a little bit. I guess I just hadn't thought about those types of, I don't know, professions or, yeah.
Well, okay.
Earlier, what you said was accurate when you were talking more about my rising sun.
Well,
I thought that was pretty accurate.
Well, all right. So here's the deal. The reason that I came up with that is that you have 3 planets in the constellation of Aquarius, and that's interested in, again, the human condition. I'm not saying that you should have be a social worker, but there's some aspect of it being, well, I mean, if you say there isn't, then I just have to take that at face value and figure out how to what's different about this. But then I'll continue with this. Now, in your birth chart, Stephanie. So remember, your special planet is Jupiter. Now, in your birth chart, you were born with here's your search term: Venus conjunct Jupiter. Now, this says you could be a party animal. Those 2 planets there are, just to use the most basic idea here, that you, that you love, you enjoy the sweetness of life. You know, Venus is the planet of sensory enjoyment and taste and perfume and just the sweetness of life, and however that occurs. And when Jupiter amplifies whatever it contacts, so typically this could say that again, there's also a lot of educational opportunities in your chart. Jupiter's the planet of wisdom. And so it's with the planet of love. So you love wisdom, you love philosophy. You're also a truth seeker. Again, those are Jupiter you have that, both of you have that similar variation on theme. But typically when Venus is in Jupiter, this says you have a tremendous capacity to enjoy your life. Now, your Jupiter also falls in the 3rd house. Now, the 3rd house is the house of the performing arts. So are you a musician, a dancer, a singer? Were you in theater? Now, not as your job description, but.
No, but it's funny because I'm not I played the piano growing up, but I am not artistic in that way. But I have fond memories of me just doing that stuff as a little girl, and some pictures surfaced recently, where I'm look like I'm performing. And my younger son and I started doing karaoke. I wanted this karaoke machine in the basement, and I have an awful voice, but let me tell you, I'm having so much fun with it. And I'm trying to get my whole family to down there and sing and dance and all this stuff. And no one wants to, I can only convince one family member to join me. But anyway, so it's just kind of funny that's happened recently. But overall, no. Yeah.
Well, but there's something in here. Now, I feel like I don't want to have to convince you of this, but it's typical that when the chart lowered, in your case, Jupiter, is in the 3rd house, it typically is pointed toward some aspect of the performing arts. Now, I have to say that it may be that you, as a podcaster, maybe this manifest in that way. There's different media that
yes.
Now, but it also says, on more of on another inner level, this area of the sky has to do with moral strength. So you apparently have a lot of moral courage. I'm asking myself now, how is that a useful concept, Charlotte? Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that you you would go way out of your way to do the right thing morally or ethically, even at a cost to yourself. And this can be quite sporty too. So, I mean, whether you're an athlete or not, I'm not sure, but this is, I mean, I'm, again, sporty. What do you mean by sporty? I don't know if that's
Sporty spice. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, so this doesn't register necessarily with you, but no, this also has to do, this is the part of the sky that's associated with literature, ideas, writing, not the spoken word necessarily, but the written. I mean, don't you just love literature?
I do.
Are you a word nerd?
I do like to read, and I actually do find enjoyment in writing when I do it, but I don't do it that often.
Did you have quite a few younger siblings?
I had two. Mm-hmm.
Well, they seem to be more important in your life, based on what I'm seeing, than in other people's lives somehow. I mean, we could pick this apart if we had the luxury of the time to do that. But in any case, your Sagittarius rising, Jupiter's in its happy place, and your Jupiter is in the third house. Now, your moon sign is Aquarius also. I mean, I said you have 3 planets in Aquarius, and that didn't really register with you for some reason. Probably as soon as we hang up, you're gonna, I mean, I don't know what'll happen, but typically your moon is in Aquarius. And so this says interest in the human condition. And also the thing about Aquarius is that Aquarius is also associated with mass media of any sort. So, I mean, I'm not saying that because I'm on your podcast, but
well, I just want to interject that, like, I think Stephanie is very interested in the human condition, and she does coaching for people, and she has been in a program that's trying to make the earth better for all kinds of people. And I just don't think you're seeing it, Stephanie. But Charlotte, I think what you're saying is accurate about a lot of the stuff. I think maybe it's hard to recognize in your own self.
Yes. Well, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm not trying to convince you of something.
Sometimes we have we associate ourselves with like a title or something that we've been told or grew up knowing or thinking. And it takes someone else to be like, yeah, but you are this whatever way, so this is actually good that we're doing this all together to start before we do our one-on-ones. Yeah.
And it's kind of this astrological analysis is sort of a team sport here. I'm glad you got your peanut gallery to say that this, wait a minute. I mean, because there's a really complex combinations. So, well, do you want to redirect me with what else you'd like me to comment on here?
I'm really curious, just in general, when I look at this, like one section that really stuck out to me is like neutral, malefic, benefic.
Oh,
like,
well,
enemy. Like, it was like, are these people? Like, what is this?
No, it's just a way to describe the state of the planet per se.
Oh, okay.
That's more for my use than yours. What I sent you just had that data on there. But
what about all the Shotari? Sorry if I'm butchering that word. Dates. There's like all these dates. Are those special dates or?
Yes, they are. Since you asked. Well, that's. Golly, girl. Okay, so I mean, since you brought that up,
and maybe just a high-level overview of what they represent, and then we can, talk to you one-on-one.
This is one of the real brilliances of Vedic astrology is that it I mean, this works this way in anybody's chart. It defines your in ideal terms, you would live 120 years. It divides a 120-year cycle into these different long planetary cycles in certain cases. So, Barney, you were asking me about that's Vimshotri, by the way. And we could, when we're talking about this, we would say that you're in the major cycle of the south node of the moon, and this means a certain thing. This runs until, if your time of birth is accurate to the minute, until the 5th of April, 2025. And there would be this describes a certain theme that's that you're developing internally. So this is another, it's a measuring device. Let's call it a measuring device in a certain way. It's and also it's an internal calendar.
Mm. Huh.
Yeah, this is unique. Western astrology has no version of this.
Super interesting.
So it's things that are happening inside of you,
Well, because, so everybody knows the expression as above, so below, correct? I hope you've heard that one. As above, so below.
Yeah.
The corollary to that is as within, so without. As it is within yourself, so that is in the outer world. So you're developing your planets. Again, not everything in your human lifetime develops. You're not fully developed yet. I mean, nobody is, unless nobody is until they're gone. So you in your case, Marnie, you're developing the south node of the moon, and that has specific references, and we won't get into that because we would be here all day long. Stephanie, just to compare and contrast, is in the major, very long cycle of Saturn. Typically, that means a lot of hard work. And again, that's neither good nor bad. But the thing about astrology is it adds a really universal context for what you're going through.
Yes.
I mean, this is not imposed by the government or anything else. This is just, it's a climate. We could call this a climate pattern, not a weather pattern.
Interesting. So when I looked at this initially, I was like, oh, the first date on mine is February 14th, Valentine's Day. I was like, what did I do on Valentine's Day? Did anything special happen on Valentine's Day? And I'm like thinking through in my mind. So it's not like something unique or noticeable or special is going to happen on those specific dates. Is that correct?
Well, it's more like developing a theme. It's not necessarily an event. And it's more of a theme. So this is, and it's very time sensitive. I would have probably, if you were coming to me as a individual client, I would grill you about what is the source of your stated time of birth. And if you said mother's memory, I would just say, forget it. And if you said, birth certificate, I'd have to go with that. But
mine's birth certificate. I know that.
But see, the thing about your chart, Marnie, is you've already been in this. What you're looking at, you've already been in this cycle for quite a long time. What you're actually looking forward to, which you will probably register, is the next shift, which occurs on the 8th of April of this year. Things get a lot easier for you after the 8th of April, if your time of birth is accurate to the minute. So,
good to know. Well, yeah, we can dissect this all day, I guess. I'll stop there. And Charlotte, this was super interesting. I cannot wait to dive in and do a one-on-one with you, and definitely encourage all our listeners out there to contact you as well. But we are going to need to start wrapping up this conversation today. We'd love for you to leave, one or two either tips or strategies or suggestions for our listeners, maybe ones that are just hearing about Vedic astrology for the first time, and what they can do to start gaining a little bit of insight into their, map of the sky, if you will, to start living a more fulfilled life.
Well, it just so happens that on our college website, there's a free chart calculator. So you could go there and plug in your data. And I have to emphasize the fact that knowing your time of birth is essential. Your exact time of birth is essential. I mean, if one cannot find that, there's workarounds here, but that's the ideal scenario. And again, we live in such a wonderful world that there's plenty of good information online about Vedic astrology. We know that there's plenty of rubbish online especially about Western astrology, with all due respect, because it's so accessible, it's so popularized here in the West. That's why we call it Western astrology. But I would say that just to go, can I give you the college website? It doesn't have anything to do with me, but
for sure.
Yeah. And we'll link it up in the show notes also.
Okay, but it's so yes, it's www.acvaonline.org, acvaonline.org, the American College of Vedic Astrology online.org. And so you'd at least find out your moon sign. And and just knowing that about yourself is really, it's really essential. It's like knowing your blood type, for instance, or maybe even more important than knowing your blood type.
Yeah.
But so just and as you said, it in a certain way, it kind of validates what you're already feeling, whether you're getting objective support for that in turn, from your environment or not. Again, know thyself, and all will be known, and gives you, permission, if that's necessary, to be however you want to be. And
well, and I'm assuming it also helps you interact with other people in your life, right? Like when you have more information about yourself, it's going to help you in your life, like you said.
That's true.
In your interactions.
Yeah, just self-awareness, the self-exam. This is a part of the the self-examined life.
Yes.
And then and then just, we didn't even touch on this, but the next brilliant thing about astrology is that it prepares you for what's coming. That's a whole nother conversation.
Because I'm sure you could talk about what's coming in the world.
Do you mean in the future of your life, or do you mean like past lifetime, like a future lifetime?
Oh no, I mean, yes, one thing at a time here. Let's deal with our current life. Let's do the best we can with our current life, and that'll influence our future lives. But yes, I mean, it identifies, time to pull back and to lay low, and times to to take a calculated risk, as I said previously. So
wow. Well, I could see where that could be very useful and also maybe a little scary.
Well, no fear. Come on, you two are Aries. We know there's no fear here.
No fear. No fear.
No
fear. Thank you.
So Charlotte, where can people find you? How can they connect with you if they want to work with you?
Well, I hope this doesn't sound too boring, but the best way to contact me is through email. So my email is my initials at my name. It's cb@charlottebenson.com.
Yep. And we'll link all that up in the show notes. And we know you have a website so people can check out more your experience and all that good stuff.
Sure.
And Charlotte, one final question that we love to ask all of our guests is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
Being in harmony with the cosmos.
Ooh.
Yes. We've never had that response before. I love it.
Well, you put me on the spot. I better come up with something brilliant.
I know.
But that is true. And that's also one of the foundational points of astrology, to do the right thing at the right time. So yes, being in harmony with the cosmos, because cosmos means order.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yes. Cosmos means order. So.
And that could take a person years to be in harmony with their cosmos, right?
Well, not necessarily. When one is doing one's internal practice and, listening to your higher self, and, having your regular spiritual practice, which gives you that objective knowledge that doesn't come from other sort of maybe less informed sources.
Well, and I wasn't thinking about us necessarily, but I was just thinking about like the right brain people in my life that would think this was rubbish.
That's okay. They're merely ignorant about this at the moment.
Right.
They may catch up. They may not. It's not our problem.
That's true. Not our problem.
That's right.
Exactly. And I just feel happy grateful that Marnie and I both are of the mindset that we're very open and inquisitive, and we do ask questions and want to know why, but we are also intuitive, like you said earlier. And I think that goes a long way to the guests that we bring on the show and the ideas and the topics that we discuss that not everyone is open to just yet, at least not in this current
I
lifetime.
like how you said that, not yet. Because I mean, I think it's fun and exciting, and I want to learn as much as I can about it, but hopefully our guests will too.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I do hope I've served your guest today, and so onward and upward, I suppose.
Yes, you have.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And we will both be in touch to schedule that one-on-one and dive further into our chart.
All righty then. I'll be happy to serve you.
Yes, thank you, Charlotte.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Bye.